readers, welcome to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper, or welcome back. If you're a return subscriber, I'm happy you're here regardless, and I'm happy that you found this video about the shortlist for the Women's Book Prize. The Women's Book Prize has been around for a long time, and it was really originally created to support the work of women authors and to advance their storytelling and their talent to a greater audience. And by doing this, they are able to feature a number of women, both debut authors and return authors each year, and they select a long list and then a short list and then a winner at the end of the process. The long list came out a couple of months ago, and I've been following it, watching YouTubers, booktubers read the long list. Some of them have read all of the books on the long list. Some of them have read the ones that really rose to the surface for them. And I looked at the long list and considered reading a couple of them, and I have not. And there's a couple of reasons why. When the long list was first published, I was still kind of trying to wrap up some things that I had committed to in terms of reading and videoing those things that I had committed to in terms of reading. And I also wasn't certain that I wanted to read that list. There's like 12 or 16 books on the long list, and it was significant. And I wasn't certain at that point completely what was rising to the top for me. And I also wanted to kind of get a sense of what people were experiencing in the reading of it. So I kind of waited to start watching after people had read and did some wrap-up videos, what they were thinking. And then yesterday, I watched the announcement, and then I watched a couple of booktubers kind of reflect on the choices, and some of them were happier about it than others. But the one that stands out for me the most, having watched yesterday, was at Savage Reads and his mother's channel, which I think is Savage Reads Muses. They both read a lot of the long list, and they actually both had picked, I think, 5 of the 6. Yes, 5 of the 6 that ended up making the short list. There was one book that I'm really interested in and really plan to read that made the long list that I already own, which is the Bandit Queens. It did not make the short list, and it would have if those 2 booktubers had their way. But I'm sad about that because I've talked about it, and I really like that one. And then Cursed Bread by Sophie Macintosh was another book that I really want to read, and I actually put a hold on it when it was released as a pick for the long list, and I still don't have it, so it's very popular. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that briefly. That one is about a woman named Elodie who is in France, in this small town in France, where actually truly something happened to the people who live in this town years ago. I'm not sure, in the 50s maybe, I'm not sure. Anyway, something collectively happened to this town. Were they poisoned? Were they, what happened? And it's unsolved true crime, but this novel explores Elodie, who is the wife of a baker, and she is kind of feeling lackluster about her life in this small French provincial town, if you will, a nod to the Disney musical. And she meets this new couple who comes to town, and they're kind of avant-garde maybe, and a little bit elusive and enticing to her in some way. And so when this happens, is it the bread? Is the bread cursed? Is that what kills the town or starts to weaken the town and make them sick? I don't know, but I want to find out. So that one is something I will read, regardless of the fact that it didn't make it to the short list. So let's talk about what made it to the short list and what I might read as a result of that. So let's begin with maybe the biggest one. Let's just start with that, in length anyway. That's Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. You've probably seen this everywhere. Barbara Kingsolver is a beloved author of a lot of really thick, chunky books, and this one is no exception. That is the one reason I have not read it thus far, because it is just so dauntingly large. Also, Barbara Kingsolver has been nominated for and won the Women's Book Prize before. If she were to win for Demon Copperhead, she would be the only woman to have been a winner of the Women's Book Prize twice. Demon Copperhead, teenager, Appalachian Mountains, living in a single wide trailer with his mom, no dad, poverty, child neglect, probably child abuse, access or exposure to opioids or to drug addiction. There are some trigger warnings for sexual assault, drug addiction, overdose, and a devastating death of a dog. I have to tell you these because I really feel like it's important for you to know. And I will say, addiction and child abuse to some degree, I did that for a living, as you probably know if you followed my channel for a while. I didn't abuse children for a living. I protected children who'd been abused or advocated for them for a long, long time. And so it's not my favorite subject. And yeah, so and I don't know. It's big. It's not easy to read, I think. It is a retelling of David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, a contemporary retelling of that, certainly not set in the same location. I like the fact that it's set in the Appalachian Mountains. I think that that is an area that a lot of writers have written about, both fiction and nonfiction. It is an area that is significantly impoverished, and children are maltreated there and most very often homeless. And this is a heavy, heavy read that goes on for a really long time. But Barbara Kingsolver is a masterful writer, and I might listen to this because I have access to it on Scribd. It is one of the only books on the short list that is available on Scribd. I may get to it. I may give it a shot and see what I like, if I like it. And if I don't like it, I don't have to finish it. The next one I might get to is Pod by Laline Paull. This is a short one. This one is about dolphins, which I love. And I have a dolphin tattoo, actually, which you may or may not have ever seen. I don't know. It's kind of low on my on my neckline here. Pod is not an easy read from what I'm hearing from the booktubers that have read it. So the dolphin's name is EA. So it could be A or Ia. I don't know. There's a bit of contention about that. But she grows up in her pod with her fellow dolphins, as dolphins do, and she's growing and learning the ways of the species and of the pod. And as she grows older, she begins to have to be taken through some rituals that all dolphins are taken through. And when that happens, something tragic occurs, and she believes it's her fault. And so she leaves the pod and then is on her own and kind of adrift. And dolphin pods don't typically take other dolphins into the pod. So she's probably pretty vulnerable and unhappy and missing her family and feeling a lot of guilt. Something devastating happens. And I don't know what it is, nor do I really want to know what it is. But I do understand that this does not have the easiest content to read. It is a reflection on global warming and climate change and the things that we have done as a society to the habitat for dolphins and other species that live in the oceans, which appeals to me. And it, again, I've heard it's a really tough read. It's not for everyone. I do think, though, that I would like to start it. It is on Scribd as an ebook version, not an audiobook version, so I could read it easily that way. I do not think I'm ready to purchase either of these first two books that are drawing me forward, just because I'm not sure that there's something that I'm going to reread or want to collect, which you know is kind of my current criteria. Another one is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. I love Maggie O'Farrell as an author. She's also been nominated once before for the Women's Book Prize, and she won. So if she were to win again, she would be, again, the first woman to have won twice. So she's in competition along with Barbara Kingsolver for this kind of unprecedented award. I'm not really loving the plot of The Marriage Portrait, and I'm hearing some significantly mixed reviews about this novel. People either really love it or they're very underwhelmed by it. It's set in Florence, Italy in the 1500s, and it follows a character named Lucretia, who in real life was a real person. And Lucretia marries. She's supposed to start to explore who she's going to marry in the court, but the Duke begins to see her, and he proposes marriage to her instantly. And her father, who I think his other daughter, she either died or he lost her. Father's pretty eager to marry her off to the Duke. It would mean some prestige for their family, obviously, and a status that they don't currently have. And so he agrees, and they are married. And I believe Lucrezia is very young. She ends up becoming, don't let me tell you the wrong thing here. She becomes the Duchess Lucrezia de Medici. Once though she's married, she's not particularly pleased, and her husband is not particularly easy to live with. So this follows their marriage and what ultimately happens to her, which is a significant event. I don't know. I'm just not sure. I don't know. I might read it, I might not. Black Butterflies, however, is one that I might read, and that is Priscilla Morris. Black Butterflies is a debut novel by this author. It's set in Sarajevo in 1992, and if you have any memory or historical knowledge of what happened in Sarajevo in 1992, you know that was the beginning of an amazingly difficult period in history where an insurrection occurred and a war began and broke out. As often happens, people tried to evacuate. You've seen this recently with the war in Ukraine. People are, trying to get out right away in this kind of situation. And so this character's Zora, I think, is her name. Let me not tell you the wrong thing. Zora. Zora is an artist, but she evacuates her husband and her child and set to London and says she will join them soon. And by the time she's able to do that, they have closed off the borders and she can't leave Sarajevo. So she's left in this community with some people that she knows or meets, and she's an artist. So she does her best to find some sort of beauty and joy in the world during this incredible fighting and death and destruction of the community in which she lives. I have heard that as a debut, it's very solid. It's well liked. There's a significance to the title, Black Butterflies, that I think I can imagine what it might be, but nobody is spoiling it, and I don't want to assume, and I'm certainly not going to say, but I can imagine what it could be, certainly. There is a sense on the part of some readers that she throws in a lot of stuff, like toward the middle. It's almost like she's trying too hard to ramp it up in a way, or to bring forward everything that she wants to include so that she can round it off, at the end successfully. So it's almost like she's throwing a lot of stuff that are, that might or might not be sticking to the wall. I don't know, but it is something that I'm being drawn to. The cover of it is a glorious choice based on the fact that she's an artist. It's very colorful. Yeah, I'm hearing lots of good stuff about it. Okay, Trespasses by Louise Kennedy, another conflict, this time in Ireland, conflict with the an IRA. So this one is historical fiction in the sense that it is set in that time. This follows a teacher named Kushla, who is also a bartender by night for her family's pub. She meets a man named Michael, who is a member of the IRA. And despite the fact that he's married and is in opposition to her family's political leanings, and that he's kind of a rogue guy, she falls in love with Michael and begins a relationship with him until one of her students is killed brutally by the IRA. And now she has to come to terms with her choice and her decision and where she is in this relationship with him. This one also sounds like something that I would be interested in. I have not read a lot of books set in that time or in that conflict. I like books about women who are in struggle with their own identity and in making choices that are in the best interest for someone they care about. In this case, her student. I love books about teachers, so I think it would be a good one. And I've not read anything by Louise Kennedy, so I wouldn't mind giving that a shot. And the last one is Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks. This one is a debut novel as well, and it has a beautiful cover and gets a lot of great feedback from authors as well as readers. It is set, the character's name is Yamaye. I think it's Yamaye. She is connected to this underground reggae community, a bit of a Jamaican diaspora in London, in the underground London. And she's connected to her friends and partying and enjoying life there. And she meets a carpenter named Moose. Moose is not what she's used to, and their lives are pretty reckless, and they live kind of with abandon in this community. And then some violence occurs there as well, and they are fleeing for safety, and she ends up actually in Jamaica. So it's a story of discovering her culture in a different way, her roots, her identity as a young woman, and really trying to escape this lifestyle that she had been a part of and the impact of violence on that community. I am less drawn to this one than the others, but I am curious about it. And I think it's a possibility. But having said that, so here's my kind of wrap up. My priorities on this list would be Trespasses by Louise Kennedy, Black Butterflies by Priscilla Morris, Pod by Laline Paull, Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I would not be upset by reading Fire Rush. I do want to read Cursed Bread, which again is not in the nominations. And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to read The Marriage Portrait unless something significantly changes. And that would be like a friend of mine says, "Oh my God, I know your taste. You're going to love it." Or maybe I read a synopsis, or I don't know. But those are kind of the 5 that I would really prioritize. And Demon Copperhead would not be like the first one. I would almost choose, I might choose to purchase Trespasses. I don't know though. I don't know. I don't really want to purchase any of them unless I start them in a certain way and then I discover that, oh yeah, my God, I have to have this. Let me know if you have been following the Women's Book Prize and if you are reading or have read or plan to read any of these or any of the others on the long list. But again, if you decide to read the short list, which is only 6 books, you have till June 14th before they announce the winner of the Women's Book Prize for 2023. And we'll go from there. We'll see what happens. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your comments, your support. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe. And as always, happy reading. Bye.